Lana got coned! Lana got coned!
Drive the highway down the moon, past the billboard where you see me, see me, see me, see me. Ask the people for their king.
Welcome back to Season 3 of the Silver Nitrate Witches movie review brew, the podcast where we talk about how we talk about movies, and we are your Silver Nitrate Witches. I'm Isabelle Lang. I'm a writer, academic editor, and tarot reader.
And I'm Laura Valenza. I'm co-film editor at the Brooklyn Rail and also a writer.
And look at us, Season 3!
Woo! Our third grimoire.
Our third grimoire, The Tale of Anne Hathaway.
Not Shakespeare's wife.
No.
For all you Hamnet fans.
No, but a lot of people loved making that joke in the reviews of what we're going to talk about today.
Nerds.
Exactly, nerds. Which is, we're going to kick off the season of Anne Hathaway with the very beginning. Released in the summer of 2001, making it almost 25 years old.
No, that is 25 years
Well,
old.
it's not the summer yet.
Oh.
Is what I meant.
Okay.
The Princess Diaries, which is Anne Hathaway's film debut. Also contains a stellar supporting cast of Mandy Moore, Heather Matarazzo, Julie Andrews, Hector Elizondo, my personal favorite. If he's in a movie, I'm going to go see it, you know. Also, fun random fact, we had talked about this. Did we talk about this? No, I talked to my sister about this on the phone yesterday. This movie was Julie Andrews' first return to Disney since Mary Poppins in 1964. Which I don't know why, but I always think that's really neat.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's almost 40 years.
37 years. A lot of people did the math. All right, so The Princess Diaries is based on the novel published in 2000 of the same name by Meg Cabot. This had a really sped up timeline. So the manuscript was out to her agent in 99, who loved it so much. She sent it to people she knew at Disney and in the film industry, and it was already in the works to get the film rights before the novel was even published, which I think is really wild.
That is wild. I did not know that. Do you know why they made the movie in San Francisco
Yes, they
instead
do.
of New York? Okay.
Yes, they do. We're going to talk about it. So, Disney initially paid $4,000 for the film rights, but then as it kind of started
That
to
doesn't seem like a lot.
Right, as it started to snowball and other things started to happen and different people started to get attached, she was getting some bigger checks. But yeah, so we're getting to some of the changes in a bit. But right, so it was a $4,000 initially for the film rights. The budget, I have read a couple of different conflicting reports. It was somewhere between $26 million and $35 million. I've seen both of those numbers floating around in a few different places. Opening weekend, it made around $23 million, and since it has grossed $165 million worldwide, despite industry assumptions that it would kind of be a flop because of its G rating. And therein lies the theme for today, which is the G rating of this movie. I think this is the first and might be the only G-rated movie we've done.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've done some unrated movies.
We've done some unrated, but yeah, no. This is the first, and I imagine will probably be the only G-rated that we're going to do. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's a big theme throughout a lot of the reviews and other information about the movie, so it's a good place for us to start. So one of the big names that came to the movie that kind of increased Meg Cabot's payout as the film was progressing was that it was directed by Garry Marshall. So that's why you recognize probably a half a dozen people in this movie, because they are the same half a dozen people that are in every Garry Marshall film, like Hector Elizondo, like Penny Marshall. Garry Marshall is in there for a hot second. He's somebody at the Genovian ball in the background. Their neighbor Mr. Robitussin, the weird writer guy, he's in a bunch of the Garry Marshall movies. His daughter, whose name I can never remember, she is the Queen's like assistant lady, Charlotte.
Oh, Charlotte.
Yeah. Paolo is in a bunch of Garry Marshall movies, in a very similar role. He's the guy who does the big old makeover in Pretty Woman.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
The guy who catches, like, Mia does something at the dinner where she, like, accidentally throws a spoon or something, and the guy who catches it is also in a bunch of Garry Marshall movies. He's the one who does It Happens All the Time in Pretty Woman. He's also in The Princess Diaries, too. So Garry Marshall has his little band of people that he loves to hang around with, right? Okay, so it's directed by Garry Marshall, although it almost wasn't, because apparently in some interviews he has stated that he initially turned the manuscript down, because again, he received like the manuscript of the book before any like script was in production, and he nearly turned it down because there was a typo on the manuscript that spelled dairies instead of diaries, and he thought it was a movie about cows. Yep.
He should have read a little bit more.
Well, he did,
Okay.
and then decided to take it on after all, inspired by the interest of his granddaughters, because he was like, this is going to be a movie my granddaughters will absolutely adore. And he also really wanted to accept the challenge of making a funny film, a family-friendly film, and just like a good movie with a G rating. He wanted to prove that like this is not an exclusive rating. It's a G rating that means it is general audiences, it is for everybody, and it can be done and it can be good. And I would say he has proved that.
I was surprised rewatching it. I was surprised how engrossed I was in it still, because I don't know if I've actually watched this movie since I was a kid. Wow. And I know the last time I watched it, I did not know who Garry Marshall was and did not pick that. So that was the first thing I saw was when I started it. It's like, oh, this is a Garry Marshall movie.
Yeah.
But I found myself actually very emotionally moved by the story too. And I was like, I must have seen this movie so many times. And it is a little kids movie, and yet it still really works. Now, the book, though, is not G-rated.
No.
And I do really wish we could get a version of this story that is more true to the book.
More true to the book, yeah. So there were a lot of adjustments made, not just to like some of the characters in the stories and things. We'll get to some of that as well, but like the setting and stuff.
The dad is the one that really disappoints me. I wish it would not have been rated G if they kept the dad character the same.
Well, because the thing is, they would have had we'll talk about that when it comes to the plot. Okay. But we'll just say like it's a Disney movie. One of the parents had to be dead. Like, obviously,
that's true. That is
right?
the rule of Disney movies.
And that was the most convenient.
Sad orphans.
The dad is the most convenient one to kill off, right? But apparently, Cabot has said in her own interviews, like, part of the reason why she was, like, more than happy to have a lot of these little changes made was because, like, the heart of the story remains, the, like, emotional connection you yourself said that you found to it is still there. And she knew, even starting with just this first book, that it was going to be a series. And it is a very long series. I think there's, like, 10 or 12 books in the series. And oh god, almost like 10 years ago now, she like did like an end to Mia's story with like a royal wedding book, and then introduced like a new character that is gonna like take on the story that she's writing as like middle grade novels now. So like she had big plans for this from the beginning, and so she was like, I don't really have any qualms about you changing smaller details in the film because I know that the book is going to take off a life on its own, which it absolutely has.
I do think rewatching it as an adult and noticing that it was a Garry Marshall movie up front, I did start noticing things in it that were a little offbeat and a little weird in like a very funny classic Garry Marshall way that made me feel a little bit like, okay, it doesn't have the grittiness of the book, but Garry Marshall brought his own grittiness appropriate to the Disney movie he was tasked with making, and I did appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, I think we can all agree he did a really good job with this. reportedly at the premiere of the film, it premiered in so it released like to the public early August, but it premiered late July, and reportedly he encouraged like spectators outside of the theater and audience members inside of the theater at different points to chant, "G is a good rating. G is a good rating."
I think they should have chanted, "G is for getting off the grass."
Get off the grass. That makes me cackle every time. And what especially, we're going to take a detour for a second, what especially makes me cackle about that scene is, so Genovia is a country...
Wait, sorry, before we get into that, there's a repeated scene where Mia is going to visit her grandmother at the Genovian consulate, yeah, and she keeps trying to cut across the lawn, and it just says in like 5 million different languages, "Get off the grass."
Yes. And none of those languages, at least to my ear, are French, Spanish, or Italian, which is...
Oh, no, there was French in there.
There was French in there?
Like, "quitte la verre" or something like that.
There is French. Okay, I was going to say, like...
That might not be right French. I apologize, French speakers.
That makes me feel... It's a little less funny, because I was going to say none of the languages sound like French, Spanish, or Italian, which is supposedly where Genovia is located. Anyway. Okay. So,
yeah, Genovia is, like, I think in the same location as Andorra la Vella.
So in the books, it's described as a small European country located between France and Italy. In the film, somebody at one point says it's located between France and Spain. So I think that's just one of those things that changed. But anyway, G is a good rating, or G is for get off the grass. Kind of, again, a protest to, not a protest, but like kind of hearkening to the challenge he took on by making a good G-rated movie, and also to kind of highlight the fact that it was actually the only G-rated film to be released that summer. And for that reason, a lot of people thought it was going to flop. And funnily enough, it was also actually the first live-action Disney film to have a G rating for, I think it was like 5 or 6 years. The last one was 101 Dalmatians, the live one with like Glenn Close.
Wait, when did Parent Trap come out?
Parent Trap came out the year before, and it had a PG rating.
Oh.
Yeah. Not the year before, sorry. Yeah, the year before. Mm-hmm. Right?
Okay.
Wild. Okay.
Yeah.
So, kind of like sideways related, Disney also, at the time, held distribution rights for the film The Other Side of Heaven, which also came out that year, and also starred Anne Hathaway. That was actually the first film she filmed. It was filmed prior to filming of The Princess Diaries. It's about a Mormon missionary in the 50s, apparently. I did not do a whole lot of research, like, further once that I realized it was religious. But because they held the distribution rights for it, they opted to hold the release of that film till later in the year to release Princess Diaries first, in a move that I think has probably worked for the best. Because The Other Side of Heaven made around 55... Oh, no, that can't be right. No, I think it is. 55,000 its own opening weekend. And has only grossed about 4 million worldwide since, despite starring Anne Hathaway after Princess Diaries was released. So I think this was a good move for them to release Princess Diaries first. So just to situate us in the time, summer 2001, we would have been 8. Yeah, we would have been about 8 years old. Other films that came out that year were Shrek, the very first one, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, the one with Angelina Jolie, Legally Blonde, which we've also discussed on this podcast, Atlantis, The Lost Empire, Moulin Rouge, Spy Kids, Osmosis Jones. Do you remember that movie?
I don't think I ever made it through all of it because it was too weird.
It's very weird. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And Chocolat. Yes, there were other films that came out that year that were notable, but I did only select the ones to highlight that, like, had a specific impact on my childhood. So,
and I think everybody can note the pre-9/11 buoyancy of those movies.
Yeah. I weirdly loved Osmosis Jones. It's so weird, but
Really?
I think it was just one that was on TV a lot, like the next summer. And so I just watched it a lot. I don't even know that I liked it all that much. It was just there constantly.
It was so weird.
If you're not familiar, Osmosis Jones follows the life of a white blood cell whose name is Osmosis Jones, voiced by somebody famous. Hang on.
Yeah, it's somebody very famous. But isn't part of it live action?
It's part of its live action because he is a white blood cell in the body of Bill Murray.
Naturally.
I clearly need to rewatch Osmosis Jones, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about The Princess Diaries. So, let's get into the plot. Mia Thermopolis is invisible. She is 15, living in San Francisco with her eccentric artist mother, Helen, in a converted fire station, which is hella cool, by the way, and just trying to get through high school with her best friend, Lily Moscovitz. We learn early on in the film that her father, with whom we get the impression she didn't have a particularly close relationship, has just passed away a few months prior, and his mother, Mia's grandmother, who she's never met, I think, in the movie, I get the impression they've never met her, is in town and wants to see her and tell her that she is actually the heir to the throne of Genovia, a small European country between France and Italy, or maybe Spain.
Okay, but before we ever get there, during the opening credits, did you ever notice that the Queen's limo drives by?
Yeah.
While we're following Mia to school?
Yeah, so we're following Mia to school on her little electric scooter, which I absolutely wanted one of those
I
so
really
bad.
wanted that when I was a kid. I thought Mia was so cool.
My mother definitely put the kibosh on that when we were kids because we had regular Razor scooters, and I absolutely ate shit on my Razor scooter and had to go to the emergency room like 3 days after Christmas.
I never had a Razor scooter, but I would borrow my friends. But did you ever do the thing where you accidentally hit that, like, the ankle, your, like, little ankle bump bone?
Yeah.
And it hurt like hell.
Yeah, those things were dangerous. Like I said, I ate shit on the Razor scooter. I had to go to the emergency room, and the nurse told us that we were, like, the 9th Razor scooter-related accident that week, because everybody got one for Christmas. Anyway. But yes, as she's scooting around on her little electric scooter going to school, in the background we see a limo with the little Genovian flags driving around San Francisco as well, which is just neat. That's so fun that you just noticed that for the first time, yeah.
Also, when Clarice, Julie Andrews tells Mia that she's a princess, this movie has so many great one-liners, but there's a couple of my favorite.
Shut up! That one?
Yeah, and then that guy, no, that's a good one too, and then I love the guy who leans over and is like, in America, shut up can be an expression of it, and she's like, okay, I get it.
Gee whiz, golly wolly.
Yeah. But I love when she says, I'm no princess, I'm still waiting for normal body parts to arrive. Yes. And then I also love, I don't remember if this is that scene or a little bit later, but she says, just in case I'm not enough of a freak already, let's add a tiara.
Yes. I remember that clip being a very iconic thing that was, like, played a lot on Disney Channel whenever the movie was going to be, like, airing on the weekends or something. That was a very popular one-liner for sure. So, right, her grandmother comes to town to tell her that she's the heir to the throne of Genovia. Now that...
Have we introduced Fat Louie yet? My favorite character.
Oh my god, I don't have Fat Louie in this plot. Please tell us about Fat Louie.
Fat Louie is Mia's beloved cat, and he's just so cute and fat, and he's a tuxedo. Though in the books, I'm pretty sure I remember him being an orange tabby.
In the book, he's an orange tabby, which whenever I got my cat, who is also a fat orange tabby, I was like... It's Fat Louie.
Yeah, wait, how did you not name him Fat Louie?
Because I wanted to name him Gus Gus, like the mouse from Cinderella.
Even though Gus would probably eat Gus Gus if he ever met Gus Gus.
So, he's cute. Anyway, but yes, name. Fat Louie.
Fat Louie, very important part of this movie.
Deeply important part of the movie. Okay, so now that Mia's father has died, as we've already been told, Mia needs to basically start learning how to take over for Queen Clarice when Mia comes of age. So she starts attending princess lessons after school. She gets a makeover, a bodyguard, a limo, and then gets outed at school as royal.
I feel like we need to talk about some of that stuff a little bit more before we get to the outing. We need to talk about Joe?
Oh, yes, the bodyguard. Joe
Hector Elizondo
is his name. Hector Elizondo. Classic, iconic. I miss the vibe of her bodyguard in the book just because he's so, like, quiet and just, like, in the background. And I think his name is Lars. Mm-hmm. And I did look it up because I was curious. And his Lars Vander something. So he's clearly, like, European and probably white. But I always, when I read the books, imagined him as Cobra Bubbles from Lilo and Stitch.
I don't remember that character.
He's the social worker that shows up, the big scary social worker that shows up at the beginning, and she's like, your knuckles say Cobra.
Oh yeah, now I remember.
That's how I always pictured her bodyguard in the book, which is very different from Hector Elizondo. But yeah, Joe, he has been like the queen's like bodyguard person.
And she calls him Joseph.
She calls him Joseph.
But Joseph tells Mia that she can call him Joe, and she asks if she can call him Joey, and he goes, no, Joe. I also like when she and Lily are riding in the limo, because Joe drives them to school every day.
Yeah.
And Lily calls the limo a hearse, and Mia asks him to park away from the school because she doesn't want to cause a riot. And Joe is getting a little bit annoyed at the antics in the back seat, and he says, this is a non-riot hearse, and if it was a hearse, there would be silence in the back seat.
Yes. Classic, iconic Joe.
One of my favorite moments is when, because Joe also ends up becoming like a really good like mentor to her too.
Mentor is a
He's
better
kind of
word.
like
I was
father figure.
Yeah, because I kept thinking like confidant, but that's not exactly right. But mentor,
No.
He gives her some really sage and insightful advice about a lot of different things. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I love that moment where she's feeling bad about all of these changes she's going through, and he quotes Eleanor Roosevelt and says, no one can make you feel inferior without their consent. That was something I thought about a lot while watching this movie, was how affirming it was to young girls. Like I love the grittiness of the books, but I'm really glad that we also had this movie when we were little.
Yes, I agree. Something about like, I don't know that I talk about it much in my notes here, but some of the notes I took while I was watching it were like, I don't think I could appreciate when I was young just how young these characters actually are. Like, for some reason, it just hit me this time watching it through that she's 15 going through all of this, and I had a much better appreciation for like the youth of the character and all of the bullshit she was going through and all of the tough decisions she was having to make and the weirdness of it all, and how like I think it must have made a much bigger impression on me as a child than I realized, which is great. But like, yeah, I feel like I really got the full weight of the like, these are just ninth graders trying to survive, and boy howdy is it tough. And thank goodness she had, you know, some good voices like Joe and even Clarice at some points as well.
Yes. And I also like, I love her mom, and it's funny because when I was little, I remember watching this and being like, oh my god, she gets to be a princess. But watching it as an adult, I was like,
her mother is an artist who supports herself entirely with her art.
It has a firehouse that she turned into a house that has a tower and the pole that you can slide down, and they throw darts at water balloons full of paint. I was like, I want to be Helen Thermopolis.
Right? Hella cool. So speaking of Helen.
So cool. Yes.
You know, on top of all of the princess stuff that is going on.
Oh, wait. On the topic of the princess stuff, too, though, a couple details of the makeover that I really loved before we move away from that. I love the part where Mia is learning how to sit like a princess, and Clarice says princesses never cross their legs in public, and then it cuts to Charlotte, and she's like uncrossing her legs and trying to sit like them.
I do love
and then
that.
I also love when they bring Paolo in to do the makeover, and he turns around to see Mia and he goes, ah!
My favorite part about the Paolo makeover is talking about her eyebrows. And he's like, I love your eyebrows. They're like if Brooke Shields and Groucho Marx had a baby. If your eyebrows had names, I would name them Frida and Kahlo.
Yes. Paolo is such a great character.
Paolo is wild. I will say on the subject of the makeover, so like she gets a makeover and they basically straighten her hair, give her contacts, and put on makeup. And I understand that it was 2001, and so there is no other way to do a makeover hair without giving her straight hair and a blowout. But like, we should have let her curls shine. She's got gorgeous curls. Paolo could have given her a great curly girl routine, and it would have been amazing.
Yeah. I do wonder... I wonder if Anne Hathaway has naturally straight hair, because I feel like I've never seen her with curly hair too. So I also wonder if it was just easier to do that.
I think probably yes. That is yes, because you're right. Whenever you see her just like as herself, not as a character, she does like her hair. I feel like her hair vibe hasn't changed since then. On top of all of the princess stuff going on, right? Mia's mother starts dating her English teacher. Her best friend starts to kind of resent the things that are going on. And the popular kids pulled a truly awful prank on her at a beach party, basically giving the paparazzi a chance to take some pretty much like almost nudes of her while she's changing clothes. It's really devastating. After this whole...
No, I'm like, you're going after a 15-year-old girl. That is so
and we're going to talk about that moment too. There's a critic that I am very mad about regarding that specific moment that we're going to get into some discussion of. So after all of this is kind of happening... Queen Clarice sits down and has a really tough conversation with Mia about responsibilities and public image, and Mia decides kind of to herself being a princess is probably not for her, and then in like a really emotional moment after all of this decides she's gonna run away. And this is another moment where I was like, she's 15. I was like, Mia, you don't even have a driver's license yet. Do you have motel money? Have you even called to see if any of these places are going to take your cat since you're bringing him with you? What's your plan? I really went full like mom mode on that.
Well, 15-year-olds don't have plans when they run away.
Exactly. She was like, I'm going to take my cat and I'm going to go climb some mountains.
Yeah, in Colorado where they have real mountains. But I think the other thing that like... I just want to go back to, there is another scene where she kind of gets to try out her new princess skills at a state dinner.
Yes.
And it's just, a series of unfortunately klutzy events. And I love the bit where she takes, I think it's ice cream or something that they're eating. And she takes
I think it's like a mint
bite.
ice cream, because it's the prime minister next to her describes it as like, it's supposed to be a palate cleanser between meals.
I wonder if it's actually like an Italian ice, like if it's literally mint flavored ice, because she takes a huge bite of it and immediately gets terrible brain freeze and starts like flipping out. And then it's so cute because the prime minister and his wife, who are like the most endearing background characters, are like, oh no, she took too much and now she has brain freeze. What do we do? And they're like,
frozen.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, let's do it too, so she doesn't look weird. And so the two of them do the same thing, and the three of them are just all sitting there going, ah!
I wrote in my notes as I was watching, I wrote like, the prime minister's wife is 100% a girl's girl, and I'm here for it.
Wait, also, we haven't talked about, Sandra Oh! Yeah, Sandra Oh.
I forget. Yes. I wrote that in my notes. I was like, fuck me, I forgot Sandra Oh is in this, because she's in there just for a little bit. She's the vice principal of Grove High School, where Mia attends high school.
Gupta.
Yeah, and that's the famous Gupta.
Yeah.
Click. The queen is coming. Excellent moment. God, I love Sandra Oh. And she's talking to the queen, and she's like, how awful must it be with these paparazzi? Do people just fawn all over you? She says as she's kneeling on the ground underneath the queen and like framing her face in her hands and fawning over her.
Yeah. Sandra Oh is just one of those like actresses that no matter how small the part is, she is going to outshine everybody in the room in it.
Icon. Love it. And it made me remember that I need to finally finish watching Killing Eve, so that was nice.
Nice. And I think like about the school too, the school is where I notice some of the like little offbeat details that feel very Garry Marshall-esque, and I think kind of make up for how far the movie strays from the book. Like, did you listen to the school announcements?
Oh, not this time, but they say some funny shit. Yeah.
They say really funny stuff. Like, they say things like, virtual homework doesn't count.
Yes.
And there was, my favorite one is, will the Feng Shui Club please stop rearranging the tables in the courtyard?
That's right. Yes. Oh my god, I forgot about that. The Feng Shui Club. Oh my god. I feel like only in San Francisco, or at least only in California would you have a Feng Shui Club. Yeah, the school is a vibe. Okay, so after the whole accidental nude photo shoot at the beach,
Oh, I heard Gus.
we'll figure it out. And she decides to run away. She starts to pack everything up. We've already discussed, like, do you got motel money, you know? Partway through packing up her clothes and her cat and Fat Louie, Mia discovers a letter that her father wrote for her before he died to be given to
That
her.
was under Fat Louie.
Yes, that was under Fat Louie, to be given to her on her 16th birthday. Though I did look this up because I was like, he didn't know he was going to die because he died in a car crash. Because I thought...
Yeah, but he had only died 2 months earlier, so I thought it was something that he had, like, started writing and thinking about.
I got confused about it because in the book, her father has cancer. In the book, her father has testicular cancer, which is another reason they couldn't have brought that up in the film.
I love that bit, though, in the book, because the whole thing is he's actually, like, a total playboy and an asshole. And he was screwing around and got Mia's mother pregnant with Mia, and then he ends up with testicular cancer, and he winds up impotent. I think he's actually cured in the books, but so he can't have children anymore, and so they're like, uh-oh, we're stuck with Mia.
yes. So he's in remission. He's, like, safe, but he is impotent. He only has a testicle, and they talk about that a lot in the book.
They do. They also talk about Clarice's very sexy black lingerie, because Clarice is kind of she's a little edgier in the book.
A vibe.
She is. I picture her with, like, tattooed makeup.
She does have tattooed makeup. That's a part of it.
She has tattooed. That's why I picture it.
She has tattooed eyebrows and eyeliner, or maybe it's just tattooed eyeliner. And Mia will talk occasionally about, like, going to see her first thing in the morning, and she's got no makeup on and just this, like, eyeliner. Anyway, so I was getting confused about the dad writing the letter because I was like, he didn't have cancer in the movie, so how does he know? Anyway, okay, so, anyway, she reads this letter. It gives her some new perspective about being brave and doing difficult things. So she changes her mind. She does decide to accept the throne. She heads to the ball so she can do so. But her car stalls, she gets stranded in the rain, Joe comes to save her, and she shows up to the Grand Genovian ball all, you know, wet from the rain, and announces that she has actually decided to take the throne after all and become Amelia Mignonette Thermopolis Rinaldi, Princess of Genovia. And yeah.
Yay!
I think I didn't mention, I'm realizing now, what's his name? Michael? Lily's brother.
Michael.
Yeah,
yes.
They have a whole thing going on throughout the whole, like, will they, won't they, crushy thing going on. They end up together, obviously. They have a gorgeous kiss in the courtyard of the Genovian consulate, and Mia's foot pops like a proper Disney princess. But that's not something a lot of people talk about in the review, so it's not something that goes into detail. So I just now realized I didn't include it in the plot, but that's also something going on.
I noticed something while watching it that I really appreciated. And that's that she talks about wanting to have that first kiss with the foot pop, because she says in all those iconic old movies, when a girl gets, like, the perfect kiss, her foot just sort of pops up. And I noticed that there's a really, like, I love that she does eventually get that with Michael, like she wants, but so she and Lily have tensions the whole time. And there is a point where she really disappoints Lily, and she has to go apologize to her and try to make it up to her. And when they make up with each other, they walk away and hug each other. And while Mia is hugging Lily, her foot pops up. And I was like, I love that she also has a friend foot pop, though. Like, I think that's so wholesome and beautiful.
I didn't notice that, but you're so right. That's really sweet. Oh, I love that.
It is really sweet.
Oh my god. I hope that was planned, because that's really fucking cute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I feel like we maybe have covered this a little bit already, but what's your, like, thoughts and feelings and vibes on this movie going into it? You already said you probably hadn't watched it since you were a kid. What's the vibe? Tell me some things.
I mean, I loved this movie. I watched it so many times. I owned the sequel. I don't know why I didn't own the first one, because I actually like the first one better than the sequel.
Oh, I was going to say, I feel like a lot of people agree this sequel is not necessarily better, but, like, really fucking slaps, so.
It does have, like, really funny moments in it.
And Chris Pine.
But, yes. Though I like Michael, and Michael remains a character in the... I don't know if I think I read all of the books, but there might
She
have been
marries
more.
Michael in the end. Sorry, spoiler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought happens. I thought it was just always Michael for Mia.
Well, it's not always. There's a weird diversion with this guy, JP, I think his name is. I don't like him. He's a creep. But, like,
But you know that it's always Michael.
Yeah, but
in
that's...
the books.
It's in her heart. It's always Michael Moskowitz.
It's always Michael. So it's interesting because I loved Meg Cabot so much, and I loved these books so much, and the movie is very different from the book. So I did always have some tension with it, whereas, like, it's not the book, but if I pretend it's a different thing, I really adored it, and I still really enjoy watching it, even as an adult. And I like that while it does have a cute romance in it, it's actually really about a young woman finding her voice and her strength. And I think that is really nice, too, when most of what I was watching at 8 was probably Disney princess movies, where it's not about finding your voice. So, as a matter of fact, some of them were even about how you have to give up your voice in order to get the prince. Ariel.
I was saying, like, we'll talk about some of the changes later, but as I'm scrolling through my notes, I think I might have actually taken that part out. So just some things to note. Some of the changes. So one big change is that the book takes place in New York. The film takes place in San Francisco.
That really disappointed me as somebody who grew up outside of New York.
Garry Marshall at the time lived in San Francisco with his family, and with his granddaughters also lived there, and so he wanted to be able to film in his city. That was a big part of it, the change. Other changes were obviously things that, like, just to make it G-rating and, like, to accommodate things like the people that they wanted to hire. So, like, the dad had to die to make the whole thing make sense, because they couldn't just make him impotent, because they can't talk about that in a Disney movie, right? Grandmère, as she is referred to in the books, Queen Clarice, we've described her as a vibe. She was a bitch, but, like, in, like, a bitch kind of way. Like, she's not nice, but she's also, like, a vibe, and it's a weird thing. So, like,
she's not nice, but you kind of get really
you kind of
into
love
it.
her. Yeah. And so obviously knowing Julie Andrews was going to be on board, you can't, like, I think Julie Andrews would have rocked it as the original vibe of the character, but you can't make Mary Poppins act that way in a Disney movie.
They classed her up.
Right. They classed her up. They made her really nice and soft.
I have a question. Are there actually any embassies or consulates outside of New York and Washington, D.C.?
That's a good question.
Like, is that even at all plausible that they could have that consulate in San Francisco?
As of September 2025, the San Francisco area hosts 41 consulates from 40 countries. Mexico has 2.
My apologies, San Francisco.
My apologies, San Francisco. And then another big change that was noted by some of these critics is that, like, Lily and Mia are very outspoken and very political in the books, and that, like, some of that is still there, but it's, like, deeply softened to be more of, like, a quirky teenage thing.
It's gestured at, though. Like,
yes.
If you know how to read the cues, it is still present. Like, I think Helen and her lifestyle just indicates, and some of, like, you know, the posters on the walls and stuff just sort of indicate that they're very leftist, hippy-dippy types.
Yeah, and there is a moment where Lily's saying something like, are you still on to come help me with my Save the Sea Otter campaign or something like that? But, you know, so it's...
Yeah, and Lily does kind of talk about how she likes that Mia is a princess because she's going to have power to actually make some of the changes that the two of them dream about. And I also think the fact that Mia wears Doc Martens says a lot about her beliefs.
I would like to point out, though, in the book, they're always described as combat boots.
Yeah.
And
they
these
make
are
them
just,
into the, like, Oxford version. Yeah.
Look, I like that they're still Docs, but they're not combat boots, and that's, like, a different vibe.
I know. Her combat boots in the book were so iconic.
Like,
that
she gets...
made me really want combat boots.
Another thing that's fun... We're going to spend so much time comparing it to the books, but another thing that I love about the books is that they don't live at the Genovian consulate in New York City. Grandmère lives at the plaza. And on multiple occasions, Mia is not allowed into the plaza because she is wearing her combat boots.
Yes.
So... So we've already talked about how I was saying, like, some folks were already kind of saying it was going to be, like, they were predicting it wasn't going to be, like, a huge hit. Do you have any other thoughts or ideas about what the reception might have been when it was released?
I'm actually really surprised that people didn't think it was going to be a hit. Though I guess, like, I'm also looking at it knowing what a star Anne Hathaway would become.
Yes.
And she was so unknown at this time.
Yeah, we definitely have an interesting perspective coming at it from 25 years later in her career. Let's get into what some of the critics are saying. And what some of these critics are saying about, like, other movies coming out around the time, I think is going to make the impression that, like, people didn't think it was going to be a hit. I think it's going to make that make a little bit more sense given the kind of atmosphere it released to. So I actually wanted to start out with a bit of an outlier that's not exactly like a review of the movie. It does mention Princess Diaries. It's got a quote from Heather Matarazzo, who plays Lily Moscovitz. But it's just this interesting article by David Germain of the Associated Press titled "Teen Moviegoers Are Attracted to Smarter, Edgier Fare." So it's about teen movies coming out that summer of 2001. I didn't mention this in my list of other movies coming out that year because it was not a big movie, like, for me, but American Pie 2 also came out that summer.
I never saw either of the American Pie movies.
There's so many. I have seen Bandcamp and The Naked Mile, which are, like, very late in the American Pie series. And I've only seen them because my sister, when she worked at Blockbuster, got them, and we watched them.
Nice.
Because
Classic.
what else were you going to do? Okay.
Yep.
So, Jermaine writes, while Hollywood serves up a second helping of gross out humor this weekend with American Pie 2, the industry also has been offering a broad mix of smarter, sweeter, more true-to-life or provocative films about teenagers. He then also includes a conversation, as I said, with Heather Matarazzo, who plays Lily in The Princess Diaries. And she says, quote, "The industry kind of pushes off those types of films, like American Pie 2, on people because they think that's what kids want to see. And kids go to see that because that's what's available. I think our movie, Princess Diaries, stands as a lovely counterpoint that kids don't always want to see that they're interested in films without sex and drugs and gross things and body parts exposed." You look like you had a thought.
No.
Okay. All right. The rest of the article kind of deviates from, so I would categorize in his opening statement about smarter, sweeter, more true to life or provocative. I would say Princess Diaries falls into that, like, smarter, sweeter category. The rest of the article kind of veers into the true to life or provocative films, and talks about some other movies going on. But that just thought process of, like, isn't it interesting that, like, this is the atmosphere of films that are coming out for this targeted age group right now, and these are films that are also coming out, and let's see how they're going to go. But it just kind of stood out to me as an interesting opening of, like, the overall theme of, like, Garry Marshall's challenge to make a good movie out of a G rating, and that's going to kind of be like a through line for a lot of the reviews going forward. But interestingly enough, as I said, I didn't mention it before, American Pie 2 also came out this summer. This is not the only review to kind of pit Anne Hathaway against the powerhouse of American Pie 2, which, by the way, opened the week after Princess Diaries, and it did have a larger opening weekend earning of $45 million compared to Princess Diaries' $23 million, but, you know, anyway.
But that's interesting, too, because that's actually an established franchise.
Yes.
Like, everybody already saw American
Right, that's
Pie.
a good question. Like, what would
1.
those numbers have been if it had been the first American Pie? You're right.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what the opening weekend numbers were for Princess Diaries, too, actually. About the same. Also about 23 million. Interesting. Anyway, okay. Oh, and the second one also had a G rating. I think I mentioned that later, but another interesting fact. Okay, so another article that kind of put those two in the same sphere was by, I had to look up this person's name and practice it, Susan Voshchina of the Gannett News Service. She also at times wrote for RogerEbert.com. As I was looking up how to pronounce her name, she's, like, been, like, a person in the film critic industry for a while. So I don't recognize her name. I don't know if you would, but if I'm saying that wrong, please feel free to correct me, folks. But she wrote an article titled "Princess Takes Icky Curse Off G Rating." I don't think I've ever seen a news title that had the word icky in it, and I kind of love that.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I also never knew that people were so concerned about the G rating. Like, I just never... I think it's
Not
really interesting,
concerned,
too.
but I think people were just fascinated that it was...
Well, that they were convinced that it marked doom at the box office. But you know what's really interesting to me, too, is when you research the rating system, there were very few X-rated movies before they got rid of that rating, or they just, I don't know that they got rid of it, they just stopped making movies that would have to have had an X rating, and then eventually they brought in NC-17, but even then there's not a ton of NC-17 movies. So I think it's really interesting that, like, the ends of the spectrum are really tough sells, or people are really concerned about their ability to reach audiences, whether it's, like, too tame at G or too explicit at X/NC-17.
Someone from Disney has some really interesting thoughts to say about that in this article, actually. So the author starts out, and I thought you would enjoy this pun, Gee whiz, or rather, G wizardry.
Golly gee, that's a good one.
The Princess Diaries didn't just collect the second highest opening for a live-action G-rated movie with $22.9 million, topped only by 101 Dalmatians' $33.5 million in '96. It has the potential to gross $70 million or more, which we know it more than doubled now. The best performance for a live-action G not about spotted dogs.
Very specific. But there is a spotted cat.
There is a spotted cat, yeah. So she goes on to highlight Marshall's comments that he himself said about the challenge of doing a great G film, citing him as stating they, G films, seem to have gotten a bad rep. When I used to take my daughters to them, they weren't so good. Parents dozed off. I'm sorry, I lapsed into an impression of Garry Marshall a little bit at the end there. I didn't mean to. Later on in the article, she describes how Nina Jacobson, who was head of Disney Pictures at the time, had this to say: "People have been looking at G as excluding groups rather than being inclusive. But this is really for general audiences. It has broad appeal." And I think that's kind of getting at what you were saying a minute ago. Like, G on the lower end of the spectrum is, like, seen now as, like, oh, no, that's just for little babies. I was constantly reminded as I was reading these articles, the movie Teeth, which I thoroughly think we should do an episode about someday. You've seen Teeth. I made you watch Teeth.
I've never seen Teeth.
That movie was
God,
that movie was deeply instrumental to my teenage years.
Oh my god.
Okay. There are a bunch of, like, very uber Christian kids, and at one point they go on, like, a double date to the movies, and they're trying to pick what movie they're gonna see. And I forget what the movies are, but the option they end up going with is a G movie, which is a very, like, kiddie cartoony movie, because they're like, well, even the PG movie is probably gonna have some heavy making out, and they're like, we can't go see that. That's not appropriate. And so they end up going on a double date as, like, these 4 17-year-olds watching a movie that's clearly meant for kids. I just kept thinking about that this whole time. Okay. A box office firm, exhibitor relations company, highlighted in this article how the trailer is something that really surprised people. Like, people were surprised to end up learning at the end of the trailer that it was a G film, because it was expertly done to make the movie read more like a good comedy movie rather than a kid's movie. And that ended up attracting a surprisingly diverse audience, 25% of that audience being, like, unexpected teenage viewers. So a lot of people thought this audience was going to skew, like, mostly kids and, like, parents who brought them. And I think it was like 60% of, like, mothers bringing kids, but there was a large percentage of teenage viewers that we were really not expecting. The author ends saying, whether all studios will embrace the G remains to be seen. LOL, no. But Disney is planning a sequel with Hathaway likely to return, which we also know happened, and it also had a G rating. The real test of Diaries' durability is this weekend, a face-off with R-rated teen-oriented American Pie 2. And as we saw, like if we're just going by numbers, it technically lost for that weekend, but there you go. A couple of other quick, little quirky reviews, just some like quick, like blurbs in like the film section when you're, because remember the days, kids, when you had to look in the newspaper to see what times the movies were playing, or you had to call the theater and push the buttons and listen to the recorded voice tell you.
Oh, yeah.
So in a lot of those sections, there were some little like blurby reviews giving it just like a couple of stars and some thoughts. The Chicago Tribune gave the movie 3 stars, stating, the Princess Diaries manages to wring some originality out of its fairy tale plot makes this family-friendly film a summer notable. And they also say that Julie Andrews' winning performance here kicks the class quotient up several notches. And then the Philadelphia Inquirer only gave it 2 stars, but it did say 2 things recommend this movie. It's G rating and Julie Andrews. And so, like, that was a real positive for them, was that the rating was only G. Again, I think highlighting that it's, like, for everybody, and everybody can find something to enjoy in it. And then, of course, there are the unimpressed critics, and this is where I get mad, because this is a flawless movie, and why would you ever disagree?
Well, you know, I won't say too much until I actually hear the critics, too. But I always... You know, it's hard. I can see how if you're coming to this movie as a critic, you might be like, oh, it's so wholesome and tame and all of that kind of stuff. But I'm like, it's such, like, a solid movie for a little girl or even for a teenage girl. Like, I think it, like I said earlier, I was just so amazed rewatching it by how many beautiful, like, moments of wisdom there are in it that I was just like, that's actually, like, so nice to know that we grew up hearing these things. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to hear what the critics have to say.
It's kind of a crock of shit based on that, like, very insightful thought of, like, for what it is trying to do and for the kind of movie it is good. We'll just get to it. Okay, to start off with, the Boston Globe also gave it 2 stars like the Philadelphia Inquirer. However, they said, quote, take the general premise of My Fair Lady and throw in a dollop of She's All That style teensploitation, pat it with every Disney device and formula in the book, and you've got the Princess Diaries. The most surprising thing about this movie is just how little humor or heart it has. If you're listening, Laura just made the deepest frown I have ever seen.
I've seen this movie a lot, and I still found myself actually laughing at some of the jokes in it, and I loved noticing things in the background that I never even noticed before, like the Feng Shui Club moving the tables around. And I also, the heart, like,
it's
I was
so
saying
much heart.
too, like,
It's full of heart.
I actually found myself crying at the end of this movie, and I love, like, the building relationship between Mia and her, well, the relationship between Mia and her mother is already really good, but then bringing in Clarice and this whole new family, like, there's just, you know, I appreciate the complexity of relationship dynamics, and there's a lot of, like, smaller connections she has with other smaller characters, too, that develop really interestingly in the background of the story as well. So to say it doesn't have heart, I think is a very unfair criticism.
Yes. And what's interesting is a lot of people actually had good things to say about, well, actually, a lot of people had bad things to say about My Fair Lady, but some other, not reviews exactly, but just those kind of, like...
Wait, about My Fair Lady or Princess Diaries?
They're connected. Okay, so a lot of people, they said, take the general premise of My Fair Lady and throw in a dollop of She's All That style teensploitation. So that's what I'm going off of. Some articles that are not necessarily reviews.
Do they know that My Fair Lady is a classic?
Let me finish. Okay, yes, we're getting there. A lot of people are bringing it up because Julie Andrews originated the role of Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady on Broadway.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
That's why they're bringing it up, and because she's in it. And so a lot of, not reviews exactly, but sort of like puffy, like, look at this movie that's coming out, go see it, articles bring up how it sort of is like a role reversal, and it switches it, and it puts Julie Andrews in the Henry Higgins role. And even in an interview I read with her as well, she talks about herself, how excited she was to inhabit the more Henry Higgins role and take on that responsibility as well. And a lot of these critics take that similarity and kind of shit on it, and I'm really mad about it because I think it's really sweet.
I never thought of it as a My Fair Lady / Pygmalion type story, but it is. And I actually would have thought that comparison would elevate it, because it sort of situates it in this longer filmic tradition that then even goes back further to Pygmalion the play, which also has the name Pygmalion because the play goes all the way back to a Greek story, myth. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd think, but no, and especially so from Robert Kohler from Variety, who comes right out of the gate, being rude, I think, anyway, saying, the mediocre conditions in the once royal land of live-action family movies are hardly improved by the Princess Diaries. Ouch.
Ouch.
It doesn't get much better from there. He does praise the
Wait, before we move on from that, I think, like, mediocre family movies, it just to me kind of sounds like he just doesn't like family movies.
Right.
Which is fine. That's a valid opinion to have, but then maybe you're not the right person to talk about this one.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. And that's like really these negative reviews that's like kind of at the heart of all of them, is they're like, I don't like this movie, it's not for me, and so I'm going to tell you all the reasons why it objectively is bad just because it's not for me. And I'm like, that's not, you can just write about why you don't like it, but that doesn't make it objectively bad. And if you're a professional critic, you can do better than this.
Also, did you say that this person has a man's name?
Robert Kohler, yes.
Yeah. So I also have to say, like, it is not for you.
Oh my God.
It's not for you.
All of the bad reviews are from men too, I just realized. Fascinating.
I know. How terrible. We're teaching young girls to actually speak up for themselves and have strength and take power in the world. And we don't like it.
No. He does praise the performances of Andrews and Hathaway. He's also one of the ones that makes a joke about like the Shakespeare's wife situation. But says that, quote, the entire project under Helmer Garry Marshall exudes a prefab quality. As one of the only G-rated studio releases of the year, the pick will have a run at a potentially large to early... Oh my God, this writing is so... Okay. He's trying to be clever and it's just confusing. The pick will have a run at a potentially large tot to early teen girl audience, but only average returns should be expected, which of course we know ends up being maybe true for the opening weekend, but overall, way good. He does go on to make a point that I don't entirely disagree with, which is citing the changes in the characters from book to screen that we've already talked about. He says, Marshall and screenwriter Gina Wendkos often waste the charming comic tone and observations of Cabot's book. I don't disagree with that. I think what they end up having to, quote unquote, waste, as he says, are things that were probably going to have to be wasted anyway because of the rating, which is tough.
Again, I would love to see an adaptation of the Princess Diaries that's actually true to the books. Like, I want to see dark, gritty New York Doc Martens wearing Mia.
When I first started reading the books, I kept thinking to myself, like, this would make a great series. You could have, like, one season for every book, and it would be phenomenal.
I want to see it as a series. I don't want to see it as a movie. And I almost feel like at this point, they should make it as a series that is true to the book, but maybe even adults the book a little bit more for those of us who grew up reading it, who I think would be the primary audience.
So yeah, as we were saying, they definitely dampen the really loud and idealistic political beliefs of Lily and Mia from the novel. They also kind of cut out some of Mia's really serious like academic problems. So she's like failing algebra in the books, like real hard failing algebra. And she's also got interesting academic successes, like being in the gifted and talented classes where we meet a lot of interesting and other weird, probably not really Disney appropriate characters.
Not gifted and talented in algebra.
Not in gifted and talented in algebra. No, she's in gifted and talented for writing. And then of course the truly...
Which is appropriate because isn't the book is actually written as a diary.
It is a diary, yeah.
Yeah.
And in the movie, we only get the diary kind of at the very end. I felt like they could have
Yeah.
leaned more into the diary thing, but whatever.
I did too.
And then, of course, the truly fearsome and slightly crazy and evil grandmère. But then Kohler goes on to complain. Like, his complaint is that he thinks the comedy is just in the wrong place. So he says, quote, "It is in her, Mia's, training where the comedy should lie, but virtually never does. Instead, energy is wasted on a series of bland, repetitive scenes at school."
I really enjoyed the world building of the school, and I thought that was very appropriate too for like a 15-year-old protagonist, because I kind of hate it when movies make it seem like people don't go to school or don't have jobs, when you're like, I know you have a job or you go to school. So I like that the anxieties of school were really mixed in with the anxieties of becoming a princess. I think if it was all princess, it actually would have been too much. I think a lot of the school scenes actually really ground us.
Yeah. What he brings up specifically is, so going back to like talking about the foot pop, where Mia's like, you know, explaining to her mother how she wants like the kiss that gives her a real foot pop. It cuts to a very random one-off scene at the school, and it's just a shot of two people's feet. And so you don't actually see them come together and kiss, but you're supposed to get the impression it's two people meeting up in like a sidewalk at the school and kissing each other.
It's supposed to be Mia and the popular boy.
Is it supposed to be the popular boy?
I think it is. Because she has other fantasies about the popular boy.
Yeah, it's definitely supposed to be Mia because it's her docs. And she goes to lift her foot to do the foot pop, and she's stuck on a truly giant wad of gum, and she can't lift her foot up. And then the guy walks away and leaves her there still stuck to the sidewalk trying to get her shoe out of the gum. And this is the specific scene he highlights as like, there's too much weird stuff at the school.
See, I love that the school is kind of weird, because that's what I think makes up for losing so much of the
weirdness,
grittiness.
Yeah, I agree.
I also love too, like, I just want to tell Jeremiah, who ends up being Lily's date to the ball at the end, and he's got like reddish pink hair, and he wears vintage sweaters, and he does magic tricks, and I just want to be like, Jeremiah, someday you're going to be the cool one.
Yes. Hang in there, Jeremiah. He's got a stock portfolio and he's 15. Like, he's doing fine.
Yeah.
I also would like to point out that without the scenes at the school, we would not end up with the excellent moment of everybody chanting, "Lana got coned! Lana got coned!" after Mia shoves her ice cream cone onto Mandy Moore.
That is a good moment. And it also shows, like, I love that scene too, because the princess stuff is so lofty and idealistic, and I think it shows a real world moment where Mia is starting to find her voice and courage, because she does that because Lana's been a pain in the ass to Mia this entire time, and she was just bullying Jeremiah, and so that's Mia's moment to stand up to her. And there's other moments that we get to where Mia stands up against the people who are cruel at the school.
She
and so
knocks
I
a
think
baseball right into the popular guy's ball sack, which is excellent.
Yeah, that was a great moment.
I think that was an accident, but still.
I mean, was it? I feel like her subconscious played a role there.
There you go.
But I think that it's kind of nice that we see these very real world moments in which her beginning to find her strength and her voice is actually put into action to benefit herself or those that she cares about.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that would be lost if we focused solely on the princess lessons. Because then the only person she has to stand up to there is Grandmère, which I'm sure, Queen Clarice. Which, given that she's such a different character, is not, like, much. Okay, so then we've got friend of the pod, dear old Roger.
Okay.
So Roger Ebert gives this 1.5 stars.
That seems low.
Travesty. And he basically, the verb I've chosen is whines the whole time that this story has been done before. And it's like, you know what? Hi, yeah, sure. It's a princess story by Disney. Okay, whatever. But
it's a princess story by Disney that's not all about finding a prince.
Yes,
It's about a young woman finding empowerment within herself.
It's about how learning that courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the knowledge that something is more important than fear.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Mia's dad.
Thank you, Prince
And
Philippe.
it's also, I also love too that it's about all these women supporting each other. Like, Helen is such a supportive mother, and like Clarice and Mia have their difficulties, but it's very much about Clarice learning how to be a grandmother and a role model to Mia as well, and Mia helping Clarice maybe live a little bit more. And I love Lily and Mia's friendship, and so there's a lot of moments of like women uplifting women, or even if they don't always succeed at doing that, learning the importance of doing that and how to do it better for each other.
Yes, and that is something that is carried over from the book that I really appreciate. That's like throughout the whole arc of the series. That is a huge deal that I love does make it through to the films, which is really nice. So, Dear Old Roger begins. Haven't I seen this movie before? The Princess Diaries is a march through the swamp of recycled ugly duckly stories, with the occasional pauses in the marsh of sitcom cliches and the bog of idiot plots. You recall the idiot plot. That's the plot that would be solved in an instant if anyone on the screen said what was obvious to the audience. A movie like this isn't entertainment, it's more like a party game where you lose if you say the secret word. I personally would love to hear what he thinks is the obvious thing to be said that could solve the plot.
Yeah, because I feel like they sort of set up the tensions well. She's 15 and she doesn't want to be a princess, but I think there's also a part of her that wants to be stronger than she is.
I think what he's trying to imply is that, like, it's obvious from the beginning she's gonna accept the throne and be the princess. And, like, I don't disagree, but also, like, that's what you want to happen, so...
It's a G-rated movie, so you kind of have to, like, know where it's going from the beginning, and you have to give audiences what they expect, because little kids, I think, can't really handle it going a different way. But also, again, it's more about the character development and like, how she gets there than it is about getting from point A to point B.
Right, yeah. But what it is not is a plot that would be solved in an instant if anyone on the screen said what was obvious to the audience. So it's just, his review is just poorly done, first of all. Sorry,
Yeah,
Raj.
I mean, it's like, what do you want? Is his version of the movie, suck it up, Mia, you're gonna be a princess.
Right.
Like, that's not a good movie.
No, that... And he says this a few times throughout, and it just made me think of, like, you and I have talked about, and I was just thinking about it earlier today because I was listening to Pocahontas. I've been listening to a lot of Disney as I'm doing stuff around my house, and I think you've made the joke before that in the Just Around the Riverbend song where she's like, should I marry Kocoum? And you're like, yes.
Yes.
End of movie.
Yes.
Like, but this is not that. Okay, so he goes on to say that the whole makeover trope is overdone and also useless because Anne Hathaway is already gorgeous and too old to play the character. He says this several times. He talks about her being too old.
That's funny that he specifically points that out. First of all, I did look it up and I was actually surprised how young she was when she played this character. And while watching it today, I kept noting, like, wow, she does such a good job of, like, getting, like, the awkward 15-year-old who feels kind of snarky and is upset about everything.
Yes, absolutely. I also looked into it, like, during the time of filming, depending on, like, what months it would have been filmed, she would have been 17 or 18 playing a 15-year-old, which is obviously not like a 15-year-old playing a 15-year-old. But it doesn't...
It's pretty close.
She doesn't look too old.
No.
And this is what really pisses me off. He says that the scandal of, like, the photos at the beach... So, like, if you've not seen the movie, I'm sure you have, but, like, the popular girls... Like, she's running away from the popular boy Josh, who has tricked her into, like, making out on camera so he can get his 15 minutes of fame.
He stole her first kiss.
And her foot didn't even pop.
No.
So the popular girls rush her away and, like, find her, like, a changing tent. And they're like, come in here, you can change into your clothes and then you can run away. We'll keep an eye out for you. And then they invite the paparazzi over. They pull the tent off of her and she is, like, effectively naked. She has wrapped a towel around her just in time. And the gym teacher comes and rushes her off out of the thing. So Roger says that the scandal of the photos, he describes it as not really a big enough deal to matter. And I would like to see him say that to a 15-year-old girl who has just been photographed basically naked without her consent and had that photo splash on the front page of national newspapers by gross old men.
Yeah, that's really gross. I mean, that's really invasive and traumatizing to have that happen to any woman, and then we're also talking about it being an underage child.
This is another one of those things that, like, watching it, because, like, I've seen this movie recently, obviously.
I would hope that actually wouldn't even be allowed to go into a newspaper.
Right?
I don't know, but I would hope.
So, like, I've seen this movie. I watch this movie a lot. It's a good movie. I watch each one of them, like, the first one and the second one, probably, like, once every other year. So it's not been a long time since this movie, but, like, actually watching it with, like, the podcast eye this time, and I was mentioning before how, like, this time I'm suddenly aware of how, like, young all of these characters are. And when I saw that scene, I remember not thinking it was not a big deal, but, like, it was just something I had seen so much, I kind of just, like, it glazed over in my mind. And watching it this time, I'm like, oh my fucking God, how horrifying that must have been for her. How awful. And then to go in and immediately have the conversation with Queen Clarice about, like, because this is a moment before Clarice, like, comes to her senses and realizes she was acting more like a queen than a grandma. She kind of blames Mia for this by saying, like, you're not being responsible enough. You're going to be in the public eye. You can't do things like this, not knowing the story behind it, obviously. So, like, to go from that horrifying experience to then go to talking to your grandmother and having her tell you it was all your fault. Like, no wonder she decides to run away. Like, oh my God.
How often are women and girls told it's all your fault?
Exactly.
And not the manipulator's fault. And it's also such, like, a traumatic day because she gets her hopes set up so high. Like, she finally thinks she's getting acceptance at her school with her peers, only to have 4 of them gang up on her and take advantage of her just back to back. That's so cruel.
What he's really saying about this whole nude photo incident is, like, the reason he says it's not that big of a deal is he's citing it's not that big of a deal in terms of, like, her feeling like she can't accept the throne. He explains this is basically bullshit because so many other, like, real royals out in the real world have done far more inappropriate things, and they're still accepted as leaders of their country. So why would Genovia care? Which completely misses the point that it's, number one, about this, like, unbelievably traumatizing thing that has happened to her that we've already discussed, and 2, that it's about, like, the conversation Queen Clarice and Mia have is about Mia's decision to take on a role with a lot of responsibility and in the public eye, not about, like, what's good for Genovia or whatever.
A lot of the themes of the Princess Diaries is about kind of this ideal leadership. It's not about what a bunch of people in the real world have done. It's about how a leader should be. And it's about being somebody who is a role model that people look up to. Like, I think a real turning point for Mia is that moment when there are crowds around her school, and in the crowds are little girls who are looking at her with admiration. And I think that she has a moment of going, oh, like, maybe a little girl like me who felt so dorky and wasn't accepted and felt like she was invisible, I could make that little girl feel seen. And it's very much about how our leaders should be, not how they actually were.
I love that scene for a few reasons. One, the 2 little girls, Lily and Charlotte, are Garry Marshall's granddaughters.
That's so cute.
That he made the movie for. And second, that Jo watches this whole exchange, and after the girls ask for her autograph, and she signs her name, and she's having a conversation with them, and she's like, you guys must be sisters, and they say, yeah, and she goes, I don't have any sisters, but I do have a cat, and she's just making this silly little conversation, and she's going to sign their autograph book, and she writes Princess, and then she scratches it out, and then just writes Mia underneath in big letters. And, you know, she thanks them and she says, goodbye, have a good day. And she goes to the school. And then the camera looks at Jo, having observed all of this. And he's just got this look of absolute pride on his face. And he's like, it's in that moment. Like, the moment comes a lot later for Clarice. But for Jo, that's the moment where he's like, she's got this.
Well, because Clarice asked him later if he thinks Mia can actually handle being a princess. And he says, I don't remember the exact line, but he says that there's no doubt for him that she can do it. And I think that moment is part of that for Joe.
So, fuck Roger. He finally ends with saying...
we do not Roger that.
Oh!
Oh.
So he wraps up saying, as Princess Diaries creeps from one painfully obvious plot destination to another, we impatiently wait for the characters on screen to arrive at what has long been clear to the audience, and then again does not state what is supposed to be obvious to everyone, and being himself as unclear as he thinks the plot of the movie is.
Ooh.
But then, that's not the last we hear of Roger on this.
Roger.
He also has a column from the Universal Press Syndicate. It's like a forum where, quote, viewers pelt the famous critic with criticism of their own making. So people write to him, and then he comes back and just is more of a dick, right? So, Gordon Parkhurst of Liverpool, New York. We love Gordon. He writes, I will admit that The Princess Diaries was not a classic, but it was absolutely sweet and charming, and it was so wonderful to see Julie Andrews on the big screen again in a major role. I didn't include the exact quote, but he goes on to talk about an experience of being in the theater and watching, I forget what moment he cites, but there's a moment in the movie that makes this little girl like so excited in the row in front of him that she turns to her mom and gives her this big hug. And he's like so moved by this. He continues, I think sweet and charming are very underrated qualities for a movie to have. And in a year that has seen us subjected to Freddy Got Fingered and Scary Movie 2, sweet and charming are two adjectives that are welcome to see describing a film. I wish...
I'm sorry, there's a movie called Freddy Got Fingered?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he finishes, I wish you would please reassess your view of this film. Very kind. Very demure. We love Gordon. Roger writes... Sweet as it is, charming it was not, to me. Perhaps I should have mentioned in the review, as I did in my Dr. Dolittle 2 review, that smaller children were likely to enjoy it. Julie Andrews, who has done some great movie work, including the barbed comedies of her husband, Blake Edwards, seems to play her role as an exercise in good manners. Didn't you think Anne Hathaway looked a little older than 15?
Yes, she did look a little older.
She looked 17.
Two years older.
Yeah, and anyway. So again with the age thing, and I hope it was a deep surprise to him that a quarter of the watchers were not small children but teenagers.
Yeah. I'm curious if doing our grimoire on Anne Hathaway, we will see interesting trends in how people talk about actresses, specifically
Anne
Hathaway in this case. Because I think it's interesting that he kept coming back to, I think she's too old, especially since I feel like, even though I don't know how...
Like, I agree that after the makeover, she looks older, like more mature.
But I think that was the point. I mean, they also dress her in more conservative, more mature things, but like the actress was not... Like, I mean, they're dressing her to Clarice's taste,
right.
And Clarice is an elderly woman, so...
Yeah, in the books,
you know,
they talk about going shopping, and she ends up with, like, 24 like, Chanel tweed suits that she's never gonna fucking wear.
Which are awful. Yeah. And so I just think that it's really interesting to reduce her entire appearance in the movie to harping on her age and whether or not she was the right age. And surely it would not have been that hard to just look it up and see that she herself was a teenager when she made this movie. So that's kind of strange, because I think that's going to be interesting as we go on, seeing how people refer to Anne Hathaway in the reviews.
I'm curious to see. I am also curious as you to see how that plays out. Okay, so moving us away from the critic reviews, I only found a couple of ads that I thought were kind of interesting and worth sharing. So I want to share my screen and show you those, and I will post these on Instagram as well. So if you're listening, check that out. Okay. So this is kind of like the movie poster ad. This is like the very iconic, her with the wired over the ear headphones.
Yep.
And the sunglasses. Featuring songs performed by the Backstreet Boys, Aaron Carter, Mandy Moore, classic. The perfect family film, we've talked about that a lot. And then I think it's interesting, from the director of Pretty Woman and Runaway Bride. I think that's interesting movies to pick to highlight, like, because Garry Marshall obviously doesn't do a lot of G-rated movies, but I would say, like, even though those movies are very a lot more mature themes obviously than the Princess Diaries, I feel like the vibe is there.
Well, I also think that they probably did that to let parents know it's okay, you won't be bored.
Exactly, like you'll like it, it's fine.
Yeah. Can I also just say, because she's wearing her ball gown from the big ball gown moment at the end of the movie, and I just want to say, movies like this and What a Girl Wants with Amanda Bynes really led me to have unrealistic expectations for prom dresses.
Oh my god, for real. Like, formal wear, get your shit together.
Seriously.
Okay, and then this is another funny one that I thought. It was comparing these not ads, but just pictures in a paper comparing, like, this is again the movie listings, and they've got this shot up at the top from the Princess Diaries of Paolo, Mia, and Queen Clarice, like, immediately, like, post, the Paolo, take this and give you a princess. And it says, there's a quote underneath that says, "Your makeover was a great success, my dear girl." And then down here on the bottom, this is a frame from Osmosis Jones with Bill Murray, shirt open, beer gut, and Chris Elliott, the mayor of Schitt's Creek, with long stringy hair and a bandana, and the quote under there says, "Your makeover kind of like totally tanked, dude."
That's actually really funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, can I actually say another thing? Speaking of the makeover scene about Ebert harping on her age, I think part of the point, though, too, was to make her look older in the makeover, because the makeover is supposed to be symbolic of her maturing.
Yes, it's supposed to be a
as
transformation.
A young woman.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they actually did very intentionally go for
a more mature look.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, to wrap us up, of course, my favorite part, I don't know if it's yours, the IMDb review titles.
Oh, God.
Okay. Formulaic, but difficult to dislike.
Okay. You keep working on disliking it.
All caps. Cute movie for young teens. The rest should abdicate. Nice little royal humor there for you. Abdicate, like abdicate the throne.
No, I got that.
Yeah.
The rest? Oh, like isn't everybody who isn't a young teen? Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure that's as clever as they wanted it to be.
No, I just loved the all caps. Like, okay, calm down, bro.
Yeah.
A pedantic waste of time.
Okay.
Yeah. But then they get better.
I think if you're old enough to use the word pedantic, this movie probably wasn't for you.
My favorite, Anne Hathaway's film debut is an early Y2K girly pop cult classic. Yes, 100%. You brought up kind of what you loved is, like, she is such the awkward teenage girl that all of us have been. This next one says, great movie for the awkward girl in all of us.
Yes.
Like as if I'm not enough of a freak, let's add a tiara. And then, one I think that wraps it up perfectly, it rules.
Literally. It rules and she rules.
Yes. So, yeah, that's the thing about the Princess Diaries and about Anne Hathaway's debut on the film scene. Runaway hit that surprised everybody because of the rating, a film that was really for a general audience, as the rating suggests, and not just for kids. Garry Marshall doing a kick-ass job. Any other thoughts or vibes before we get into tarot?
No, I'm ready for the tarot.
Okay.
Tarot.
I feel like I dip into the major arcana a lot here, and I'm going to try to branch out a bit more into some of the others, but I feel like what really fits for us here is I've only got one for Mia, and I would call it the Hierophant, which I forget what number it is in the major arcana, but it represents, like, in the traditional, like the very ultra traditional sense of the tarot, it's supposed to be this like religious discovery, or sort of like an understanding of your own spirituality as a person and an individual, apart from, you know, the things that you might have learned growing up or the culture you might have been a part of as a child. But, you know, obviously in more modern interpretations, I read it a lot as like individuality and coming into your own, as we've discussed a lot in this movie. You know, it's really at the heart of it about a girl discovering her voice, and like she already knows what she thinks and what she feels, but through all of these ups and downs and weird situations and makeovers and, you know, inheriting a country and everything, she finds a way to voice those thoughts and feelings, and is excited to like accept a role where that's like basically what she gets to do for a living and make a huge difference. So the Hierophant for Mia.
I love that.
I suppose we could also do the Empress for Queen Clarice, just because, just vibes alone. No reading, just vibes.
Well, and isn't tarot just vibes at the end of the day?
I feel like Joe... Oh, no, I was going to say Joe could be the Hermit because he's kind of mysterious, but actually I changed my mind. I'm going to assign the Hermit to Mr. Robitussin, their weird neighbor who writes soap operas.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Because my favorite...
He won an Emmy.
He won an Emmy. My favorite one-liners have got to be his, where, like, Clarice comes to the house for the first time, and then she leaves, and she, like, waves bye to him. And he says to himself, "The elegant European woman didn't stay for tea, but the promise of tomorrow hung in the air." Like, he's just constantly writing to himself. It's so good.
Yes. I love it.
So Mr. Robitussin is the Hermit.
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Though.
I also love his boring normal trash can compared to
the like
Mia
tie-dye ones that Helen's decorated. Yes.
Yeah.
Because the joke is they always back into his trash cans or run into his trash cans or whatever and just scream, "Sorry, Mr. Robitussin," over their shoulder.
Make his life that much more annoying, even though he won an Emmy.
He won an Emmy. When he's talking to Joe is when he tells him that he won an Emmy, and then he's like, "I wrote a character like you once. He was a spy." Joe goes, "I'm not a spy." And he says, "That's what the character said." So good.
I love it.
All right, so what are your final thoughts on Princess Mia and Genovia?
I mean, I think, you know, we should end it with Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Exactly. And I would like to finalize also, after 25 years, the Genovia national anthem still slaps.
Oh my god.
Genovia. You can find your Silver Nitrate Witches on various online platforms at LJ Valenza and at Bellang303. Thanks to the use of Fine Motor for their song Highway Moon and Movie. You can check out more about the band at finemotormusic.com. Thanks for listening, stay witchy, and keep watching movies.